Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. In today's story, a lighthearted office prank takes an unexpected turn when a mischievous coworker accidentally targets the wrong person. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Sometimes the best revenge is that which is never delivered at all. I, female 32, was the inadvertent recipient of a minor prank at work. Let's call the instigator Bill, male 36. One lunch break, Bill had decided to poke some holes in the top of a bottle of water, thinking it belonged to another colleague of his, who he occasionally had minor prank wars with. Unfortunately, he accidentally picked my bottle of water instead. Now, I don't mind a bit of fun at work, but I wasn't really expecting this, as I had nothing to do with Bill thus far that would justify an unwarranted prank. Bill himself was known to enjoy pranks a little more than was necessary. However, they were generally harmless, and he was actually very good at his job. So everybody just let it slide as if he wasn't being mischievous. He'd be happy to help with whatever you were working on. That being said, I can roll with a prank or two, so let's get petty. After a liberal soaking of my blouse, I pretended to be very annoyed and stormed off in a huff, making a point of slamming my bottle of water in the recycling bin for added pissed-offness. The other colleagues in the break room, not used to seeing me react this way, were initially concerned that I was in a foul mood and came by my desk to apologize on Bill's behalf and say it wasn't intended for me and to please not make a big deal of it. As they spoke to me, I informed them to keep it quiet, but I wasn't pissed off, but wanted Bill to think I was. They all promised to keep the charade going, as knowing I could be a prankster too, were interested to see where this was going. So fast forward 2 days. Bill's not yet spoken to me, as I've been giving him the stink eye. That lunchtime, I bumped into Bill coming out of a meeting room. He took the moment to apologize quite profusely, and I realized he'd been thinking about this way more than I was. He genuinely seemed remorseful, even offering to buy me flowers and pay for any dry cleaning. Fair enough, but I had to have the last laugh. I told him, apology accepted. Thanks, Bill. Don't worry about any of that. I've already set my revenge trap. I added a nonchalant glance towards where his desk was, just for flair. Bill was glad I'd accepted his apology, but was obviously on alert for anything unusual. At least 3 times a day, he'd inspect his desk, his car, his food, his coat, etc. This is petty revenge. I obviously wasn't going to keep it going forever. After a few days, I went over to Bill's desk and asked him if he'd found my revenge yet. He nervously said no, at which point I burst out laughing and said, there wasn't any. I just wanted you to think there was. Thankfully, he saw the funny side and said that was the best revenge play he'd experienced. He said he'd had his guard up even over the weekend when he was at home. We shook hands and all was forgiven, although I couldn't resist a parting note. Hey, Bill, guess you didn't notice I loosened your water bottle cap, right? He instinctively went to check, saw me laughing again, and admitted defeat. Bill had told the rest of my colleagues at some point that afternoon, so I got a few "I heard about Bill, well played" type comments throughout the rest of the day. Since then, Bill and I haven't pranked each other, although he did pop by my desk one afternoon if I had any extra packing tape. When I queried what for, he said, it's best if you don't know. As soon as I found out why, when the next day I walked into the office to hear another colleague of ours asking who the hell had taped his keyboard and mouse underneath his desk. Apparently he'd spelled Bill's surname wrong on an external memo, so this was Bill's revenge. I wasn't implicated in any way. Nice to hear about pranks that are actual pranks where no one's physically hurt or humiliated. And our second story. Local neighborhood hardware store knows me too well, which can be a bad thing. I have a thing about buying local. If I can get it from the store down the street, I'd rather pay a little extra than to order it from the local juggernaut online store named after a river, or from the orange or blue box stores from hell. Same goes for lumber or other stuff. So when my partner and I bought our house, it needed a lot of work, like open up the walls and add studs and redo the electrical and plumbing, kind of a lot of work. And because we bought our house in a walkable neighborhood, the local hardware stores 2 blocks over but is an affiliate/franchise, I guess, of a large hardware company that rhymes with base. So if I ran out of screws or needed something, I'd duck out back down the alley, roll up to the hardware store, grab what I needed, and slap the card down. It got to the point where I just asked them to keep my card on file and to charge me at the end of the day for what I picked up. The employees all wear badges, but there is no uniform, and they stop and chit-chat with people. They all look like mid-20s and mid-30s hipsters, and a few have side hustles that are hardware adjacent, like 3D printing and laser engraving/part cutting, CNC milling, etc. Apparently, I spent so much time and money there that customers began to think I actually worked there, or was a side contractor of sorts. They have a water heater business that works out there as well as residential glass replacement. One day, I'm in with my kiddo to grab some screws, some cedar planks, and a few bags of potting soil for her school garden project. I also noted that the employees were all wearing "Hello, my name is" name tags. When I asked, they said, "Oh, we have to get new ones from the corporate office, but they haven't arrived yet." Not 5 minutes later, I have a lady ask me where they keep the toilet plungers. I directed her to the place they keep the plungers and moved on. Next was an elderly man who was having issues with a specific kind of spacer for his furnace filter. So I showed him the weird parts section of the fastener section and moved on. By the time I'd gotten to the front of the store to pay, there were 4 people who'd walked up to the manager and said, "That man with the little girl is so helpful. He's a wonderful helper. You should give him a raise/promotion/thanks." When manager told me when we came up to pay, "I'd love to give you a promotion. How's a 10% raise sound?" Wait, what? You made a bunch of sales. Apparently I'm supposed to make you Employee of the Month and give you a raise for being so helpful to that couple looking for doorstops? Oops, sorry. I just know where everything is now. And your name tag. See, I have a work vest that I tore a massive hole in one day, and I found a patch online that is, "Hello, my name is" sticker with Inigo Montoya in the namespace that I bought, and I sewed on badly to cover it. After that day, I stopped wearing the vest, even though the new tags for the employees finally came in, and I stopped helping random people in the store find the things they're looking for if an employee is available. And now that my house is fixed up, I'm in there a lot less these days. But every so often, the older lady with a poor memory asks them if that helpful employee Inigo is still working there. Why would people think someone would be working in a store with a child following them around? And our last story. Crazy vegans are keeping me from enjoying my backyard. When I moved into my house 3 years ago, I was filled with excitement and big plans. In a Midwest city known for its football, I found a place with plenty of yard space just waiting to be transformed into my dream garden and food forest. The problem? It was a barren landscape, a sea of grass, a couple of maple trees, and a lone dogwood. Nothing inspiring, but I was determined to breathe life into it. My new neighbor seemed friendly at first, a bit skittish maybe, but friendly. Cheryl, the lady next door who was in her 50s, even offered to mow my lawn because she found it calming. I laughed it off and assured her it wouldn't be necessary. Then I got to work. I removed all the gravel, a decision that apparently made both Cheryl and her son, let's call him the kid in his 30s, happy. But instead of keeping the status quo, I covered the yard in wood chips and horse manure to prep it for planting. I added flowers, a small elm, and started planting cover crops. That's when things started to get weird. One day, Cheryl nervously laughed as she observed my efforts. "Looks like you're trying to bring back the forest," she said with a chuckle that, in hindsight, carried a lot of weight. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was my warning. Things were about to spiral out of control. 2 weeks later, I came home to a shock. My lawn had been perfectly mowed. Cheryl had taken it upon herself to tidy up my yard without asking. Then there was her son. I first met him leaning over my fence, hacking away at a tree growing out of a stump. I didn't even know who he was. He nonchalantly explained that he had paid someone to cut it down and wanted to keep it that way. I politely told him it was on my side of the fence and he needed to ease up. Oh, and I asked him to tell his mom to stop mowing my yard. He shrugged it off. The kid, by the way, was a self-proclaimed real vegan, proudly announcing one day that he'd sent himself to the hospital by living off nothing but kale smoothies for a month. His sense of superiority was palpable. As the summer wore on, the grass in my yard grew taller, flowers bloomed, and I felt at peace until I saw the kid hanging over my fence again, cutting back more of my plants. I told him to knock it off, and that's when things really went south. He accused me of scaring his mother with my strange plants and my request for privacy, and so began a 2-year Cold War. They called code enforcement on me. The city has a rule that grass can't be over 9 inches tall. I got a wildlife refuge permit. They called code again. The city changed the law, saying grass couldn't be protected. So I removed all the grass and covered the entire yard in wood chips. No grass, no violation. Problem solved, right? Wrong. The next morning, I found one of my beloved elm trees dead, killed overnight, its leaves chemically burned. Then a sign appeared on their house mocking me. Monoculture wins. I couldn't make this up if I tried. They called the police, claiming my wood chips were some kind of offense. The cops couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it. You can't get arrested for having wood chips, they told me. But it didn't stop there. My sunflowers and sunchokes mysteriously died in midsummer, a near impossible feat. The kid screamed insults at me from his porch every time I stepped outside, his face red with anger over my garden. I responded by planting more. The flowers flourished, the trees ran wild, it became a jungle, much to my amusement. But to them, it was a war zone. They called code again. Code was stumped and said there was nothing they could do. The neighbors called the police once more. This time, the police advised me to get a no trespassing order. That's when the neighbors ramped up their efforts. They installed floodlights that blazed anytime I walked down my driveway. Cameras appeared on every corner of their house, watching my every move. And then came the chemical warfare, literal. I'd find patches of my yard carpet bombed with chemical dust at 3 a.m. They were poisoning my plants. I took photos, documented everything, but reasoning with them was futile. The kid told me I should be grateful he wasn't physically attacking me and that I was threatening his mother with my flexing and threatening plantings. You can't make this stuff up. And now it's spring again. I just found more piles of chemical residue along the property line, leaving burnt leaves in their wake. But I'm not giving up. I'll keep planting, keep growing my garden, and keep laughing at their ridiculous attempts to stop me. This is my yard, and I won't be bullied out of enjoying it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.